Hello and welcome. This video was prepared on the 10th anniversary of the establishment of our Water Harvesting and Erosion Control Charter in Agua Dulce, which is a managed community in Tucson, Arizona. Although the committee is relatively small, it's composed of very dedicated volunteers that have had a significant impact on both erosion and water conservation in our association. For those who are unfamiliar with Agua Dulce, we're a managed community of 411 homes located in the foothills of the Tucson Mountains, about 6 miles northwest of Tucson in southern Arizona. This chapter will summarize our latest project focused on the use of Urbanite to help traverse a historical erosion control feature by our community pool. Recently, the association moved pool treatment chemicals outside of a confined space where fumes were contributing to pump equipment failure and potentially high bills. In response to the relocation, one board member raised concerns about pool contractors having to cross an existing erosion control feature. That crossing is part of a feature that was originally installed in 2013 under the guidance of Watershed Management Group to help mitigate erosion from both backflush and rainfall runoff, so it's relatively important for protecting association assets. The board wanted to mitigate the safety concern and solicited feedback on a proposed remedy. The proposal was to bury the pool backflush discharge and then extend that respective outfall to a nearby desert wash. Doing so would certainly flatten the grade, but it would also likely require excavation of our rock mulch rundown, impact local infiltration of precious water, and require the import of over 10 yards of decomposed granite at a cost of over $3,000. In response, several committee members recommended using 2x6s that could be extended over the feature when needed. This would significantly mitigate the risk at almost zero cost to the association. As an improvement, we built a small wooden bridge that could be placed over the feature and stored on site for use as needed. We hesitated on sharing this in response to board concerns that use of wood might pose a slipping hazard. In response, we suggested building an Urbanite bridge over the feature. Urbanite is reclaimed concrete from reconstruction projects, and we just happen to have some in stock saved from a recent sidewalk rehabilitation project in our HOA. Rather than see this material end up in a landfill, committee volunteers collected and saved as much as possible in their homes for use in future personal and association projects. A proposal to use Urbanite for remedy was submitted and approved, so we immediately got to work. The evening of approval, we visited the site in order to better understand the grade and work on a site plan for mitigation. We started by using Urbanite and a Bunyip to determine critical elevations for our feature. This is a two-man job, so my son Joey offered to help with the survey. For those that aren't familiar, a bunyip is a water level made from scrap wood and a yardstick attached to Tygon tubing. A bunyip works by taking advantage of the fact that water will find the same elevation in the tubing regardless of the grade between 2 points. In this example, if we add water to the tubing on the left, that tubing will fill to an elevation that matches on both yardsticks. We can then read those elevations to determine the slope between 2 points. If the ground is flat, the elevation recorded by both yardsticks will be equal. If we add water to a bunyip installed on a grade, there will be a difference in the recorded elevation that can provide insight on the slope between 2 points. The nice thing about a bunyip is that you can read the elevation across a longer distance at multiple points. This is extremely helpful in situations where you're trying to understand where water will flow in larger areas that are relatively flat. Using our Urbanite and the Bunyip, we recorded key elevations that we could tie into for ensuring proper grade control and discharge of water where we want it.
Some of the tools that we're going to use, of course, are going to be tampers. This is anytime we excavate or replace soil, we want to make sure that it's been wetted and tamped down so that there's less settling. Shovels and rakes, of course, and also we've got this bunyip right here, which was donated to me by my buddy Van Clothier over at Stream Dynamics, and we're going to use this to measure the slope or to help us even things out across this feature, since standard water levels can be a little challenging to use in situations like these, especially when you have a long distance to traverse. So the remedy that we proposed is to use this Urbanite to essentially create a nice flat surface that the pool guy will be able to wheelbarrow or hand cart those chemical containers back to those cages across this feature. And we raised the grade between these two blocks, which are fairly level, and we needed dirt to backfill all this. We have this beautiful Texas Ranger that's getting runoff from that feature right there and from the playground, and it was dumping sediment into our Zuni bowl. So Siobhan went ahead and emptied out the Zuni bowl. We took the dirt from around the base of this Texas Ranger to fill this area in right here, and we'll build a spillway to basically dump any water that overflows from this basin downstream to this rock mulch rundown. You kind of see how this is developing. We're going to have our little Urbanite pathway crossing to the chemical storage facility over there. And then we've got our basin back here that's going to bypass dumping sediment into the Zuni bowl and send it around to the rock mulch rundown. Awesome.
There you go.
I think we'll be okay. All right, folks, here's the completed feature. You can see that's where they bring the chemicals in, and they store them in that little cage right there. We've got some runoff coming off the roof right there, which historically has just been running straight into the Zuni bowl. We've gone ahead and we regraded this so that it would feed this little water harvesting basin back here that's been backfilled with mulch, and then spill over to this area right over here. So we've got this little feature that's going to tie in to our rock work. We also have runoff coming off of that little feature right there. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to feed this little water harvesting basin and flow over this feature, and the elevation of that is much lower than the gate, so we know we're not going to run into any issues with harvested rainwater backflowing onto the patio and into the pool. So this elevation is about 8 inches lower than that, and it's probably about 7 or 8 inches higher than the bottom of that little mulch-filled basin. So we were able to save this little feature that's been serving us well for over a decade. So when water flows over this, it gets soaked in to the ground fairly quickly. It doesn't make it to Roger Wash. So this just ran yesterday. And this is about as far as it gets right here. And just as we did with this feature, we'll do the same thing with the new feature. We'll keep an eye on this, make sure that any runoff isn't contributing to any head cutting, and that we also don't get any runoff that might contribute to erosion and impact our little bridge here. But I think in the end, this is much more attractive than in digging this all out and installing a pipe that is going to run down to the wash, which is going to create all kinds of compliance issues. The other nice thing about this is it's free. This was all done with material we reclaimed from a sidewalk project here in the association, and all the work was donated by dedicated volunteers.